A record number of environmental activists were murdered last year. The murder of a Russian activist has been linked to a website.
Maseko was gunned down at his home in Luyengo.
This is the price women pay for confronting the Taliban.
So you have seen, and I have seen, that human rights defenders all over the world are subject to and targets of repression. These are people who are taking great levels of risk in order to promote change.
This is not the time to be silent. This is the time to support any efforts to introduce legislation to protect the inherent rights of human rights defenders, of activists, whose road ahead is very fearful and uncertain.
If we don't help the human rights defenders, then we're helping the oppressors. We're helping those that are denying human rights.
And therefore, I really appreciate Chairman Cardin's effort to introduce this bill, because at the moment there is no sustainable mechanisms to provide protections and support for the human rights defenders at risk or in need.
One of the things that stand out to me, a value that the Human Rights Defender Protection Act brings, is that it characterizes the work of human rights defenders as such. When you call someone a human rights defender for their work of promoting and protecting human rights, you are offering not just legitimacy to their work, but a layer of protection to their work.
Women's rights activists, journalists, human rights activists, people who are pushing against corrupt governments. There are a lot of people that fit into it, but what we really want to do is name and define who they are and be able to call out their work in the struggle for freedom.
We also really appreciate the fact that there is a recognition that in some cases human rights defenders need to be given the refuge, as it were, to be able to live at least temporarily and be able to return when the situation is better.
And that's why it's included in my legislation to provide that type of assistance for a human rights defender who's at risk in their home country.
Yes, creating a non-immigrant visa category for human rights defenders can save lives. Sometimes the risk is between doing the work or going to jail, between doing the work or facing the risk of physical violence, not just on the defenders themselves, but on their families. Having a pathway to an immigration status in another country that then provides them the room, the space to keep doing the work that they do even from afar is important, not just for protection, but also for ensuring that this work carries on.
Many human rights defenders have had to flee their country because of their activities. And the National Endowment for Democracies, their fellowships is to provide that type of support for a human rights defender who cannot operate in his or her own country, the type of support they need so they can still be an effective voice on behalf of the cause in their country.
I do believe, based on my experience, they help us a lot. And therefore, I'm so glad that the program will be expanded through the bill. In Burma, I was working on justice and accountability for the Rohingya. The military was chasing me and I have to leave my country. And I came to study in the US. If I go back, I would be arrested again or I would be killed. And program like Reagan Faisal Fellowship helped me. The program itself is very useful for the human rights defenders and democracy activists around the world because we are able to gather together and learn from each other.
One of the areas I've been really focused on in the Senate is to get our diplomats trained in areas where they're desperately needed. So we think this is a logical area for improvement so that diplomats are sensitive to these issues. They can identify risk factors in the country in which they're operating in and to provide the help to keep them safe.
So it's essential that all of our officers are getting the training they need to understand the important work that human rights defenders are doing, the importance of human rights, democracy, and freedom to our foreign policy, and are able to be articulate ambassadors of those points as they are going out around the world to advance American interests.
As human rights defenders who will benefit directly from from this bill. We support any policy or legislation that would ensure that foreign embassies have the tools and the resources to protect and promote the rights of human rights defenders.
Well, first of all, may I say that it's a very strong piece of legislation, and I think if it's implemented, it would significantly increase the security and protection of human rights defenders. And I love the whole of government approach. If this Human Rights Defender Protection Act goes through in the right way, it'll have a game-changing effect. And that's an act.
This is the work of human rights defenders themselves, because the things that we have advocated for in this bill are the result of our experience.
I think that the best answer to how this bill could be effective or not is by asking the people who will benefit from it, who are human rights defenders.
So we did reach out to human rights defenders in an effort to make sure we draft this bill with their needs in mind, so that we address the issues that they care the most about, so they can go on doing their work and give hope and courage to others to step forward to be activists on behalf of human rights. Well, these activists, these human rights defenders, the people that are supporting the human rights defenders, they're our heroes. They're who give us courage to act. I thank them for their engagement and their input. Their input was absolutely essential to the drafting of the Human Rights Defender Bill, and I know it's going to be important for us to get it across the finish line. So thank you for what you do every day. You inspire all of us. You give us confidence in our future. We are blessed to have your help, and we're going to make sure that you have the protection you need.
As I prepare to leave Congress, to my colleagues and to you, let us stand shoulder to shoulder with human rights defenders in their fight for a brighter, more just future.